Lonna Kelly, and this is Hudson Valley Art Speak. Thanks for watching today. Today we have Dr. Irvin Miller here, and Dr. Miller is not the, I usually interview artists, but Dr. Miller is a really interesting mix of a very creative person who is also an electrical engineer with a graduate degree in experimental high energy physics. And what we're going to be talking about, among other things, is art and math and the intersection of the two of them. Welcome.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming, Irv.
I'm glad to.
Yeah. So art and math, are they so far apart? Do they intersect anywhere? What do you think?
Well, there is math in art. I mean, if you start off with just the colors themselves, mixing colors is something that physicists and mathematicians have worked with for years. And as color displays came in on the technology, they were able to achieve that for the general public. So, in fact, I had a situation once where I was doing greeting cards for my daughter's wedding, and we wanted a Dartmouth green, and I sat there with the color palette and kept working until I could match the color.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, in pictures themselves, when you're dealing with perspective and other, you know, physical realities of observing things, you're bringing the math in there.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too in terms of photography and say the rule of thirds, where you're working and it's a grid and you know, converging lines and scale.
But that's your perspective there,
Mm-hmm.
your converging lines. It turns out that what I found interesting when you talk about the art is that when I was young, the one activity that my parents did for me was send me to art school.
Oh, really?
And not realizing that that would come back to help me in my career. And when I went to work for IBM, computer graphics was the area that I decided to specialize in. So a lot of the early since I was one of the pioneers there, a lot of the early computer art I was able to generate before the really good artists got down to it.
So you got them going, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that you were a problem solver at IBM?
Yes.
That's what you...
Well, one of the interesting problems that one of the corporate people once came to me and they wanted to present a three-dimensional bar chart. And that was sort of new at the time, and they used to do it by hand. And so they wanted to be able to do it on the computer so they could do it faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a good bit of math in order to take into account the one tower hiding another tower. And so I worked it out, and since I was very good in programming languages too, I was able to do the thing in just a matter of days. It was something they thought couldn't be done.
Yeah. So I can thank you when I want to make a bar chart, and I just click and it makes a chart.
Well, several generations now
Yeah.
have you know, modified that original work.
Yeah, yeah. You know, one of the artists that I wanted to just talk a little bit about is M.C. Escher.
Mm-hmm.
And
One
what
of my favorite, as you might guess.
Yeah.
Another one is Moldrian.
Uh-huh.
The Broadway Boogie was something that appealed to me because of the mathematical, you know, symmetry, and,
Uh-huh.
and then of course there's other paintings that got into that area. So I was very surprised that, you know, certain artists, and then realizing there was the mathematics in there that was really attracting me.
That appealed to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Escher has we have these two works by Escher here, and he calls some of his the works that he does impossible constructions.
Yes.
So, you know, it's hard to tell sometimes if his staircases are going up or down, or, you know, where the people are in it.
Well, if you'd picked one of his simpler ones, the one that's the fork, you can basically see the technique that he's using in there. One of the things that people are observing in modern technology is that they get headaches when they're watching 3D television or movies.
Oh, really?
And part of that is because the brain gets confused because it's trying to put things together, and since the 3D is artificial, it creates things that the brain can't handle, and so the brain reacts by getting nauseous. And what Escher has done is basically taken certain things that we take for granted, and he's put them in a different place. So when you're looking at the fork in particular, you see that the lines really don't form a fork, but it's something other than that. So the brain is sitting there trying to focus back and forth, and it sees this object that violates reality.
Right.
And that's basically what he's done with the tower there, where you keep walking up even though you're walking around in a circle.
Right.
And so the trick, of course, is if you're a mathematician, is to find out, what the trick he's done in order to give you that kind of illusion.
That perspective, yeah. You said before that you did photography and you have been involved with art?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but art not in any sort of classical sense, just drawing, and I haven't done really paintings or things, but when the computer was available, then I could make use of my weaknesses and the computer, and I could put some together rather imaginative things in terms of, one of the things that people may have remembered from Twilight Zone, or one of those shows where they had these oscillating sine curves, which are called Lissajous figures. And I used to create that kind of art with the computer.
Yeah.
I created the CBSI, and I would have things like having people hold themselves, because you could do all this stuff fairly easy and fairly quickly. And as the technology moved, what I was doing as an adult, kids were doing. So that sort of showed the magnification that the technology was in terms of having people create, art that was of very professional level.
Yeah, very high quality. I have a friend, he's an artist, Michael Garland, and he does beautiful, fine artwork, but he also does work on the computer does illustrations for children's books, and they're very different from his work and very charming.
I also have written some children's books too that are on my website.
Have you really?
And of course, then I can do whatever I want with art with the computer.
Yeah.
And in fact, the thing that we have here on the floor, I took, should I bring it up?
Sure.
Okay. This is a balance bar, which basically illustrates multiplication, fractions, and the distributive property. And so, in order to make this more available to people, I cartoonized it and put it on my website. It's called Balance, and when I'm doing the multiplication lesson, I'm using Flash, which is really neat, because now you get a dynamic art in there.
Right,
so you can
right.
actually see the things moving. And the imagination is unlimited. One of the things which I want to do is I bring the weights in. I want to bring them in with a little train. I never quite got to that. But there's a lot that you can do with very simple art. And this obviously is just lines and things in here.
Yeah.
But it creates a nice image.
Now, how do you show multiplication on that?
Well, it turns out that the balance bar works by, it's the product of the weight times the distance from the center of the fulcrum. So for example, the reason why these are balancing is this has a weight of 2 grams and it's a distance of 6 inches. So 2 times 6 is 12. Over here, this is a distance of 4 with a weight of 3. And 3 times 4 is 12.
Right, so it's equivalent.
So you basically are trying to balance the products of the weights and the distance on this side with the other side. And you can actually end up using it as a scale. So, and of course when you put it together is, I modeled this after an actual balance here, so the colors, the red, the yellow, and blue just happen to be very appealing colors.
They are, they're very bright and colorful. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that you said that I was interested in, it said that you had to go back, after you had graduated, done your post-grad work, I assume, that you had to go back and relearn a lot of the things that you had learned because they were incorrect?
Yes. It turns out that what you find interesting in math, and the new core curriculum illustrates this nicely, is that we've never taught math correctly. And the way you can draw that conclusion is every 5 years they come out with a new way of teaching it, which sort of implies that there was something that wasn't as good. So we've now come out with maybe 5 or 6 generations since I was a kid of a new way of teaching math. And what I found was that there are certain concepts that we just sort of take for granted, like 0 is one of the interesting ones, that everybody talks about 0 as nothing. And I say, no, 0 is not nothing. It's the number before 1. And because it's a number before 1, it exhibits some very interesting properties. And 1 is used to build numbers. So a lot of times if you ask a child, what is 2 raised to the 0th power, they'll tell you 0 because 0 is nothing, whereas the answer is 1. So there's a lot of misconception because of the way things are presented. I was taught that you can't take the logarithm of a negative number. And I discovered after I learned complex numbers that I could do this. So there were lots of things that I found that was left out of my education that were just plain incorrect. And a large number of these things. And that's one of the reasons why we have so much trouble teaching math now. And so part of the reteaching myself was so that I could teach children. And I've been able to teach learning challenge children way beyond what the schools can do. And the new program which they came out with, I was working on something like that 5 years ago.
Really? The Common Core that is being used now?
Except all the mistakes I made, they're now remaking.
They're making them.
so it's going to be another 5 years before they get up to this level now. So I've got lots of people who come to my museum. There's a number of families here from the Carmel area that come on a regular basis because they're not happy with the way things are being done now.
And your museum is in LaGrange?
It's in LaGrange. It's on Route 55 right near the Arlington High School.
And so you use a lot of props and different things with the children, and it's a hands-on?
Well, the thing is that one of the things that's big in art is patterns. Okay, and so this is where math really comes in nicely with patterns, in that if you make use of patterns, you can memorize huge amounts of information. So over here is the magic square, and the rule in here, and everything has rules, is that the numbers have to add up to 15 in every direction, along the diagonals and along the horizontal vertical.
Here I am. I'm sitting here adding up as you're
and
saying
so,
it.
well, normally the numbers are not put up here. I've put up the solution. And so if you sit there and try to memorize these things, you're going to forget them 2 minutes later. So what I point out to the children is that the even numbers are in the corner, 2, 4, 6, 8. And then on my website I also have this, and I say, who do we appreciate? The odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So I just have 2 patterns, remember, the even number pattern and the odd, and they're in sequential order. And so now the children can do something that most adults can't do. And it's also a technique for learning. So and it's a question whether my art background sort of does this. But the other thing is there's symmetry. And again, we have symmetry in art, which is beauty. And here we have rotational symmetry. So there's not just one solution to this, but several solutions. So by basically rotating it, now instead of getting one step and rotating it too fast, instead of getting one solution, I get 4 solutions. And if I reflect it by taking this column and interchange it with this column, I get some more. So you can take, by making use of patterns, take some very complicated concepts. And when I put this together, one of the high school teachers or one of the middle school teachers in the Hyde Park system was the one that suggested hanging these on a peg so that I could rotate it.
I have 2 dyslexic sons who really struggled in school, and I'm just wondering now if being able to have this physical representation and moving things around and being really hands-on would have helped them to grasp the concepts a little bit more easily.
Well, the reason why this was put together is because if you don't do this without the board, the 2, 9, 4 move down there, and the children can see it. So I've had I had a 4-year-old girl who can do all 8 solutions in less than 2 minutes.
Wow, that's great. You know what? Our time is up. Believe it or not.
I was having so much fun.
Talk about, but we have to.
So we didn't get to the origami.
We didn't get to the origami or to this great Dalmatian, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lonna.
I appreciate it, and it was good that you came. Thanks, sir.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.